Quest for knowledge and quest for the wisdom and knowledge in martial art, and that's what he stressed with me when he trained me. Very, very a physical instructor, but also very philosophical instructor.
Bruce named his new approach Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. One of Bruce's early students was a college freshman named Linda Emery.
I was very taken by the martial arts, but even more so by the instructor.
One fall day in 1963, Bruce and Linda were practicing together on campus.
He let me throw him to the ground, and so I did, and so I had him down on the ground, and he said, "How would you like to go to the Space Needle?" I said, "Wow, you mean all of us? We're all going to go to the Space Needle?" You know, Space Needle had just been there since the World's Fair the year before. And he said, "No, just you." I said, "Wow." Whew.
Linda and Bruce's relationship quickly blossomed into a serious romance. Bruce's parents, themselves an interracial couple, blessed the union. Some members of Linda's family, however, had trouble accepting Bruce.
We did discuss this quite at length about the difference in our cultures and the family problems that it created. But between Bruce and me, it was always actually an opportunity to share each other's cultures.
On August 17, 1964, Bruce and Linda were married, joining together man and woman, East and West. Together, they would launch Bruce on the path towards stardom. Soon after they were married in 1964, Bruce and Linda Lee moved to Oakland, California. Bruce opened a second school of martial arts where he taught his revolutionary style to any and all who were willing to learn. That too was revolutionary.
At that time, it wasn't the proper thing to teach a person that was not Chinese Kung Fu, and he was one of the first to break into that barrier.
Bruce's skills and his philosophy continued to grow and to evolve into an all-encompassing way of life.
Ultimately, martial art means honestly expressing yourself. Now, it is very difficult to do. I mean, it is easy for me to put on a show and be cocky and be flooded with a cocky feeling and then feel like pretty cool and all that. Or I can make all kinds of phony things, you see what I mean? Blinded by it. Or I can show you some really fancy movement. But to express oneself honestly, not lying to oneself, and to express myself honestly, that, my friend, is very hard to do.
At home, Bruce and Linda's marriage reflected their life philosophy, that their union was one of hearts, minds, and souls.
His idea was that the man and the woman are not opposites. They don't play opposite roles, but rather complementary roles.
He cherished his relationship with Linda. He says, he told me that he thought he was the most luckiest man in the world because he had Linda as his wife.
On February 1st, 1965, all of the Lees' love and joy burst forth in the form of their first child, Brandon Bruce Lee.
He just came out fighting, you know. He just had a real personality from the moment he was born, and he let everybody know about it. He didn't sleep through the night till he was 18 months old.
Bruce was very proud of Brandon, and he'd always tell me how he had him doing the side kicks and all these kind of things, you know, and Bruce was really a family man.
Bruce and Linda had only 1 week to celebrate Brandon's birth before news arrived that Bruce's father, Lee Hoi-chun, had died. Utterly devastated, Bruce returned to Hong Kong to mourn his father's passing.
At that point, I guess Bruce realized how his father has helped him to become who he was, and all the Chinese tradition that was instilled in him, and he really missed him a lot. So when he came back, he was really crying, I mean, loudly.
Bruce's emotions were wrenched in another direction when, while in the middle of mourning, he received an unexpected phone call from Hollywood. The call was the result of a martial arts exhibition Bruce had given months before.
Bruce came out and demonstrated Kung Fu, from one-finger push-ups to one-inch punches to being able to spar somebody blindfolded. This is what you can do if you train your body to be very sensitive and to the peak of athletic condition. And no one in America at that point had seen anything like that.
A film of the tournament ended up in the hands of Hollywood producer William Dozier, who needed an Asian actor for a TV action series he was developing. Dozier took one look at Bruce's skills and charisma and knew he'd found his man.
Test X2, take one. Speed.
Start off. There is band arm strike using the waist again into a back fist.
And let's have the assistant director back up just a ways. Okay, go ahead.
In the winter of 1965, 25-year-old Bruce Lee was cast as Kato, the crime-fighting sidekick to the Green Hornet, played by Van Williams. The Green Hornet debuted in September of 1966.
He was very light on his feet, and also his speed and also his strength for a guy his size, because he wasn't very big. And there was a lot of things that he could do that just kind of amazed me.
The cameramen were equally amazed when they discovered that filming Bruce when he was moving at full speed was practically impossible.
Because he was dressed in all black. It was not so much as a blur, you just couldn't see him. I mean, he was so fast, you really couldn't see what was going on.
The show drew a small but enthusiastic audience. Purely by accident, Bruce Lee had become a TV star.
Everybody would come over and say, wow, cool, everything, that's your brother and stuff like that, And my mom would watch it, and of course, all of us were so thrilled.
It was a short-lived thrill.
We're not needed here anymore.
The Green Hornet was canceled after only one season, and even though Bruce received most of the show's fan mail, he wasn't offered other roles. Instead of talent agents calling him with work, Hollywood's biggest stars were calling him for kung fu lessons.
He said, I got a one-inch punch that's better than anything you ever did. I said, oh, really? Yeah. I said, well, I'll show it to you. He said, okay, stand up. I stood up, and he held 3 pillows in front of me, and he held out his arm like that, and like that, knocked me back out of the chair, rolled over 3 times, over in the corner, and the room was large. It was a big room. I made about three heads over heels, 1 inch. I said, pow! That's when do we start, man?
Bruce's celebrity students also included Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Steve McQueen.
It was always a very important time to him when you were working out, and he always wanted to make the most use of his time. Your time together with him, you really had to be like, you had to have done your homework and be ready to go.
McQueen was such a competitor, he was always, he always really wanted to hit him. He always really wanted to do it to him. He could never touch him.
Though Bruce enjoyed teaching, he grew increasingly frustrated with being stereotyped. The few small acting roles he got were always as a martial arts instructor, and Bruce knew he was capable of much more.
Bruce and I discussed a number of times the problems of dealing with racial stereotypes. He had to deal with the ones that affected Asian Americans, which I did not know a lot about personally. I only knew about it superficially, but I could talk to him in depth about the ones that affected African Americans, and it was more or less the same story.
Bruce's response to Hollywood stereotyping of Asians was to create a role for himself that would provide both an income for his family and dignity for his culture.
In the United States, I think something about the Oriental, the true Oriental should be shown.
Well, he said, I want to do something to uplift the image of my people. He said, look at what you see in the American movies. He said, you see the Chinaman in these westerns or something like that with his hands in his sleeves and his pigtail, and he just stand there like a monument or something. All he says is chop, chop, and he said, it's not right. He said, I want to try to do something to create equality among mankind.
His hope on television was to explore the higher principles of martial arts through a weekly television series. And his idea was a show called Here Comes the Warrior, later shortened to The Warrior, about a Shaolin or classically trained martial artist in America.
Bruce Lee's project eventually aired on network television as the hit drama series Kung Fu. But in a bitter irony, the producers rejected Bruce for the role of the lead character because they considered him too Asian.
When he was not offered the role, and he was told that he was not offered the role because he was not bankable, because an Asian person would not be bankable as a leading man in a television series. That was a serious blow. because he hadn't realized really the extent